The big difference was that our managers were bought into this. It is critical that at the very beginning we say enablement and ops and all these teams will support you, but you have to believe that what you're going to spend time doing is going to change the output from your team. And they asked for it, we delivered, and they executed.
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Eli Cohen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of SalesHood, and really excited today to have some amazing speakers with us. Sarah Fricke and Caitlin Lambert from RingCentral. And today is really a great topic, enabling managers to coach with data. And, we collaborated with Sarah and Caitlin around what would be meaningful today to share with the broader community. And we really wanted to tackle a problem that is widespread, universal, and a really big problem, right? We talk a lot about enablement. We talk a lot about coaching. We talk a lot about correlation. We talk a lot about performance data. We talk a lot about frontline manager, but those tend to be siloed conversations. And what was amazing is the years of work Sarah's been doing and the amazing work that Caitlin's been doing with her to really bring it all together into one cohesive strategy. And so love both of these folks. Sarah and I go way back, and Caitlin is an enablement lifer for many reasons. And so I am going to pass the baton because Sarah's going to take over. And listen, I want to welcome my dear friend Sarah, and please take it away. And I am going to go on mute.
I look forward to it, and please post all the questions. Both Caitlin and I are ecstatic of what we've done to date, but always know that we're all evolving, and the way we as enablement professionals get there is collaborating and pushing each other to get better. So talking about enabling managers with coach to the ability to coach with data. We're going to go through 4 things today. One, ultimately, why did we do this, right? We all do this because of our strong alignment with our revenue leaders. Define what we had as coaching, and then how that evolved as we switched to the remote really quickly, and not all planned, but very exciting what we were able to accomplish and how our managers reacted. And then finally, Caitlin's going to walk through how did we support our managers? What was the data, the systems, and the process that we put in place in order to get there and to get them to really what I would say is kind of the cutting edge world. All of this was to get to that holy grail of the most powerful metrics, not too much, not too little, just right, that could be translated into this overall coaching culture that we've created across our teams. So excited to jump in. First things first, why did we do this, right? Our sales leader came to Siobhan and I actually at our kickoff, I think 3 years back at this point, and said, okay, if you two can do anything, you've got the onboarding down, great, we needed that, but what is enablement, right? If you can do 2 things for me, make the number and make my team happy. And those were the 2 critical pieces. And we kind of said, okay, well, why happy? Like, I know we want folks to enjoy our culture and enjoy being there, but what can enablement do to increase that? And what he told us is there is a really big cost to losing one of our, specifically our enterprise reps, which is the segment we focus most on. It's almost $2 million when you think of things like what we all know, which is quota, held, but onboarding costs, recruiting costs, brand loss, uncovered territory. These were things that he was kind of packing into what is the overall piece. And why he looked at enablement as that keeping the team happy was because we impacted each of these 6 areas in a way. So we were looking at the full collective view versus just the HR lens or just the operations lens. So we needed to work with those 2 groups, but overarching enablement was the connective tissue that brought it all together and created this culture of coaching, not just coaching to one specific thing. Back in 2018, y'all have seen me present this before. We did a project called Project Lead. And through that, we held all of our sales leaders captive in a room and kind of said, what do you guys think coaching is? So we wrote this definition together, and it's held true year over year. It's ongoing, it's intentional, it's just between the manager and their direct report. And it's designed for development and performance. It's not designed to pull up Salesforce and to go through, did you put this in? Did you put this in? Did you put this in, right? You would already know that data, and you're bringing to the table that you're helping Caitlin, you're helping Eli, you're helping Frederick move their pipeline forward and improve themselves along the way. Because that's how we create this coaching culture, right? People want to be coached at RingCentral, and that's what makes it really different versus being like, oh, I got to go into this coaching conversation. I wonder what they're going to make me work on now. So as we hit our lovely last 2 years, we were all just alluding to, things started to change. And Melissa Regan on my team is actually the first person who brought this up and said, it's happening from a conversation we're having with our customers, right? Where there's this information gap our reps now have to fill and use our sales methodology differently. And as she was walking me through this, I was kind of like, that's the same issue that I'm having as I pull up at the manager level. Our managers have to coach differently because there is body language and there is missing pieces of information as part of the conversation. So we had to move it from the information to the connection gap and helping our managers really connect with someone one-on-one that they can't over a beer, right? They can't, have a conversation in the office where they're able to hold someone's hand through a difficult conversation. So that connection gap meant that we had to take the weight that they might be placing on me leaning in on the camera or using my hands to talk and redirect their brain to work harder on the pieces of information that we were looking for them to accomplish, right? So little things like just focusing on one coaching topic at a time helped us drill into that, and giving our managers the fact that you have to still be you and human. Maybe you bring a glass of wine to a one-on-one conversation and recreate that as much as you can across the table. So what we had to solve and adjust to is creating more structure around the coaching topics. And then what Caitlin's going to walk you through is creating the right metrics that we then helped our managers uncover and coach to, creating that overall culture around that holy grail of the right metrics. A couple of topics that we focused on were things like appreciation, listening and reducing noise, empathy and motivation. I'm sure that everyone on the line can agree. These were really big topics during the last few months and year to ensure that we got right? If you had team members who hadn't traveled or seen you or had a nice, dinner with your collective team, they were starting to feel not appreciated. Even if you hadn't changed anything the way that you work as a leader, there was this, I go to work and I work more than I ever did before. And I don't get that feedback loop that I had previously. Right? There was so much that we were trying to push out to our teams because you had to change so quickly. People weren't listening, right? People didn't feel as we moved into this world that they were motivated to take off their PJs and put on real clothes for the day, right? And continue down the path. So we really had to focus on these topics. These were just 3 of the several that we covered, but we drilled into these more specifically. I'm going to give you an example on appreciation as a takeaway for your team here in a minute. 2 major things that we did is we were used to managers that would get together at manager offsites, or they would, in local areas, get dinner together. So they were used to learning from each other live. We had to recreate that space to collaborate in a different format. So we used SalesHood as a spot to house information that they were going to go measure, like their manager business plans, load them all up together so they can see, what did Caitlin do? What did Eli do? What could I take and make mine better? We gave them some coaching scenarios and best practices, actually did videos of 2 managers coaching each other so that they could learn, right? And they were using that great data, bringing to the table. But again, you just had to find the space to collaborate that was different than what we had before. The other piece was, and we started this in 2018, but it became really important during the last year or 2 that we've been remote, especially when you're onboarding new managers that might have coached differently at previous organizations. We all had new managers. You had to have hired somebody in the last 2 years. And so we put together this one-on-one prep sheet. In 2018, we pulled it back heavily the last year. And this is where they take what Caitlin's going to walk you through in a minute and think of, okay, what is my new hire doing from an onboarding perspective, from a Salesforce perspective in the system, from a quota attainment and performance perspective, and where do I want to spend time with them? I can't spend time on everything. So drilling down into the agenda to prepare really helped them, and having a purpose statement for that meeting. So that led us to doing those overarching coaching topics, right? Such as appreciation. Wanted to put this up as a takeaway from today. The assessment that's linked at the bottom is free. Anyone can take it online, and it tells you a little bit about who you are. I actually had my whole team take this, and all of our managers had their teams take this at the very start of COVID, because what it allowed us to understand is okay, Caitlin is more introverted and I'm very extroverted. She's going to struggle with different things during this change management that we're all going through that I'm going to struggle with. So how do I help bridge that gap? Maybe it's getting Caitlin a mentor that's closer to her personality style. Maybe it's just being cognizant and using different techniques with Caitlin. So appreciation is the first thing we did. And it's the reason I chose to focus on it, because it allowed our managers to have a new baseline that might have been different when you have people in a room because they feed off of each other, that they now didn't have because it was truly one-on-one. And we focused on these 5 areas. So Siobhan, who's my boss, is on the line, and she'll tell you mine is very closely around words of affirmation and tangible gifts. I love getting mail. There's this rush that comes when I get something from someone, and I kind of think, well, why did they buy this, and what were they thinking, and putting all the pieces together. And I also thrive off of understanding what I'm doing that's resonating best and getting that feedback loop, right? Versus if Siobhan said, came and took something off my plate, like an act of service, and she says, I can do this, I'll do this. That's helpful, but that's probably not going to make me feel as appreciated as sending me a handwritten note would. So understanding that about someone, especially during this crazy time, was really helpful to our managers to make sure that they're coaching in the right spots. We then used SalesHood to ask them for a feedback loop. So we created a repeating huddle monthly, and they used that topic. So for example, appreciation, went to everyone on their team and they asked, who'd you coach? 3 questions. Who'd you coach? What'd you coach them on? And what was the feedback? And very simply, we were able to figure out who was doing it best. And again, have that space to collaborate and bring them on a call, have them share that best practice and get Q&A from their collective team. So this worked really well. And I'm excited to talk through what was the data that then supported them in having those conversations, right? How do we get to the right pieces of data? And Melissa and Caitlin did such a phenomenal job. So Caitlin, excited for you to walk us through it.
Yeah, thank you. So as Sarah just explained, we created this culture of coaching with our sales org at RingCentral and adapted that for a remote environment. So the next step for us was to marry the art of coaching with the science and numbers to furnish it. We needed data to better understand where the teams were and what kind of coaching topics to bring up. Sarah, if you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we knew what the goal was, right? Enabling managers to coach with data. The next step was figuring out how to create a quantitative assessment for those areas of coaching opportunities. We needed to understand what systems were needed to pull that data from. And then we needed to come up with a process for rolling this out in a digestible format. And what we landed on was creating a new hire metrics dashboard to be used by leaders and their team in those coaching sessions. Next slide. So we started by looking at new hires because it gave us a specific set of employees who are at the start of their journey with the company and who could benefit a lot from these routine coaching sessions with their leaders. And it was also an immediate need asked of us by sales leadership. So we took that goal of enabling coaching with data and created the new hire dashboards to provide a comprehensive look at the success of a sales new hire during their ramp up period and to identify those areas of coaching opportunities. Using feedback from our enablement team and sales leadership on what is most important to understanding a new hire's progress, we highlighted specific metric areas to track. The first of which is onboarding participation. So what e-learning modules have they completed? What live training events have they attended? The next one that we identified was role-based activity and outputs. So metric criteria chosen according to the respective roles of those new hires. And then finally, quota attainment. So quantitative data that shows performance in relation to target goals. And again, the intent and purpose behind the dashboards is to be used as a coaching mechanism. So it was really important that the data we chose to highlight would provide those coaching opportunities across different segments. At RingCentral, we have aligned sales enablement managers for different sections of our sales organization. So their feedback, along with direct feedback from sales leaders and from our operations teams, has been really crucial. Next slide. So within those three key areas, we had about 150 metrics that sales managers and leaders wanted to look at. So we took that list and we ran that by operations to assess what we could actually deliver on and where we needed to adjust. It was really important that we brought our sales ops teams into the conversation early to better understand the systems that we would be using. And we relied on their support throughout this process, from calculations needed to accessing the different data sources. And we combined the feedback from operations with that of our sales leadership and our onboarding training manager, Melissa Regan, to deliver on measuring what matters. And from there, we were able to narrow it down to the 3 to 4 areas shown here, allowing us to assess the data sets in a succinct manner. So where do we collect this from? Next slide, please. We use the system that our organization uses. So for those onboarding metrics, we use SalesHood, which is our learning management system, to look at the percent of which a new hire has completed all learning paths and training modules, as well as attending live training events using the live event huddle that SalesHood has. For activities and output metrics, we use Salesforce, which is our customer relationship management system, or CRM. And then finally, for quota attainment, we pulled that from Exactly, which is our sales performance management SPM system. So we took these 3 different systems and connected them all into Tableau for data visualization. And the next slide is going to show what the result of that was. A comprehensive dashboard of new hire metrics. So this is a mock-up of what we use, but at the top, you can see we have different tabs that drill down into those metric areas, right? So we have SalesHood, we have Salesforce, and we have quota attainment from Exactly. But what we also created and what I'm showing here is a higher level overview that summarizes all those metric areas into a single page. So in this first box in the top left corner, you can see SalesHood data. We have learning path completion by session and the total average. The next one to the right is pulling from Salesforce. We're looking at pipeline health, so opportunities by stage. The next one is opportunities owned. And then down to the second row, we have the percent of opportunities with the mutual plan attached, the percent of opportunities with selling through curiosity fields filled out. And then finally, bottom right, we have the percent of quota attainment, again, from Exactly. In the right-hand column, you can see we can filter by quarter, segment, manager, and also by specific new hires by clicking directly in the table at the bottom. And in the table, you can see some of the other metrics that we're tracking, like average sales cycle, estimated total pipeline, and dollar booked per quarter. And this is just phase 1, right? So we had that goal, the new hire dashboards and Tableau, using metrics for account executives in our field sales segments, which is where we started. The purpose was to correlate onboarding training with how they are ramping as a full-time employee. This also coincided with a new hire success report to give new hire insights. So as we have new hires come through onboarding, managers are receiving direct feedback on their participation and growth through an email that's sent out directly after they conclude training. And this also accompanies a new hire metrics check-in. So during the quarters after their start date, which provides continued updates on their progress using these metrics that are available in the dashboard. Phase 2 of this project for us is new hire participant surveys. So assessing program goals, accommodating for leadership and different segment needs, which takes us into phase 3, which is where we are now, of duplicating and customizing what we've done with the dashboards and the templates for other segments. So differentiating the dashboard and the metrics in them by role. And then the last aspect of this that we want to talk about, which is on the next slide, Sarah. Thank you, is the rollout process and the reactions from our coaches. It was really important that we supplement the provision of this data with a complete tool guide for how it can be utilized in coaching. So as Sarah explained, we established the habit of coaching, and then we gave them the numbers and the data to support those habits. Now, how do we make sure that they can access it and understand how to use it in conversations? So what we did is we created a couple different things. The first of which was a navigation guide, which is on the left, explaining how to open the dashboards, how to find the relevant data, how to manipulate and filter views for their new hires. The second one is an FAQ sheet with anticipated questions that we anticipated during the rollout, a guide for troubleshooting, some technical issues that might occur, and then an explanation of the metrics that were captured. And then finally, the coaching playbook with best practices for coaching with this data, conversation ideas, and how to identify areas of opportunity looking at the numbers in the dashboards. And the rollout process is really what furnishes this topic of coaching with data. It wasn't enough just to come up with the numbers. We had to set our coaches and our teams up for the most success by supporting that data with concrete methods of utilization. So for example, by providing those quarterly updates on the progress of new hires, like that will help foster conversations with their one-on-ones with their leaders, a kind of data-driven situation analysis, right? And providing quantitative data that we can also use to praise our new hires and our coaches, reinforcing those best practices. This can also help new hires and their coaches identify targeted areas of improvement, as well as an established way to measure their performance and growth over time. And eventually, as we get more new hires and more data in here, we'll be able to establish a baseline glide path of average new hire ramp time that can be used to compare others' successes during the program. At the same time, it also gives us a data-driven point of assessment for our training and onboarding program itself. As far as reactions from the coaches, we've had a really good response to this project. Our sales leaders scheduled one-on-ones with their aligned sales enablement managers directly after the launch to learn more about how to use the dashboards and conversations. There's been over 100 views of the dashboard since it launched. And leaders have really appreciated those detailed and direct feedback emails that are being provided after the new hires onboarding. So I'm going to pass it back over to Sarah now to talk a little bit more about the reactions and the takeaways from this entire journey.
Absolutely. Caitlin, phenomenal job. I mean, you and Melissa took 150 metrics and found a way to make it consumable. As you have thought about kind of the views, I wanted to state that you had 100 views, but that we've only been launched for a couple of months now. And our leaders take, a little bit of time to crawl in, but that is pretty phenomenal across really 2 months of actively using the dashboard to have 100 views. People are diving in and they're using it. I wanted to share a quote from one of our frontline managers before we delved into Q&A. He is one of our Canadian managers, so happy Canada Day. And what he had really shared is it helps him not only prepare, but compare his new hire against others or against folks on his team. So part of the next phase of this program is to not just look at new hires, but zoom out to all of our employees and what did they do in their first 90, 180, et cetera days, and how can we ultimately make sure that someone's tracking like someone who was very high performing at RingCentral. One of the questions in the chat was around why didn't we look at more outbound metrics such as calls or leads converted opportunities, so on and so forth. That is, as we think about the next phase, we just wanted to keep it super simple right now, which is what'd you take in SalesHood or LMS? what are you doing at a high level in Salesforce, such as leads to opportunities and opportunity management? And then what are you doing on the back end, which is, of course, quota attainment. That would probably be a little different. If we were in a BDR role, we might look more at calls or emails sent to the sent out. So Kevin said it super well, right? The whole point of everything we do in enablement is to accelerate the work that our account executives and our SEs and our customer facing roles are doing in the field. So very excited for this work and excited to share it with all of you. Happy to answer any questions. Eli, anyone stand out for Caitlin and I?
So we have a few, and I just want to start by saying amazing. And I do want to start with Caitlin and just say that was a phenomenal presentation, and the depth and the thoughtfulness and how you mapped out the strategy. It's really complex. And both of you, this is an amazing story. I just want to, this is a really big deal, right? To think of where you've taken your manager enablement program, because you've done phenomenally over the years, right? Look at RingCentral, right? The impact that your enablement team has had on the business is bar none, one of the best on the planet, right? And look at the results. And you can look at any one of your programs and you can point to win rates, you can point to faster time to revenue, like it's amazing. But now you've taken it to the next level for all of us. You really have. So amazing, amazing, amazing. I think I love the feedback. There is one, I have a few questions. So I did want to just kind of give you a round of applause because I love it. And I can tell by the feed, there are a lot of people are interested in, they're very similar kind of tech ecosystems, right? With Tableau, with Salesforce, SalesHood, bring it all together. So you've got a lot of interested people that want to learn more. And so you already touched on the question around leading indicators. There was another question that came up around how do you track it, right? So how do you track the coaching conversations? You touched on it in your presentation, maybe just go a little deeper. That was a question from Juliana. Thank you.
Absolutely. So that's always the fun part, right? And funny enough, one of the things Carson had asked me at one point, our sales leader, to track is how happy is the team? So those are both very hard things to grasp around. The way that we have tracked coaching conversation is self-reported from the managers, where we're asking them to go into a SalesHood, very simple huddle. Who did you coach? What did you coach them on? And what are your next steps? Takes no more than 5 minutes. We set them all up with the mobile app, and we really do encourage them to do it on their phone while they're waiting for somebody to dial into their next meeting, so that it's a feedback loop so we can know what's going on. And I can ultimately give Carson, hey, these 12, 13 coaching conversations all had the same theme. I think it's something you should address at a higher level down to our management team and make sure they've got the right talk tracks.
Yeah. I think those three questions, which I wrote them down as well. Who did you coach? What did you coach? And what was the feedback, right? We've got a bunch of templates that are in our library for everyone. And, you set up a huddle very easily and you scale it out to your teams. This is manager coaching, manager enablement at scale, but with correlation. I'm still like blown away by how amazing this is. So you got manager feedback. I'm curious, another question that came in, let me see here. I'm sorry, the feed just moved up. So talk to us about some of the challenges you faced, right, along the way, because this could not have been easy to get here. Like, what are some of the challenges you faced?
Caitlin, you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, it was a long process. We kind of hinted at it a little bit, but there was a lot of different parties involved in the decision making regarding what was going to go into the dashboard. And ultimately, as we went through the process of figuring out what metrics we wanted to look at, a lot of it would come into if it was feasible or not, right? So there were a lot of other things that we wanted to include, but it wasn't feasible with the timeline for the project or with the capabilities of the systems that we were pulling from. And so they're all things that, like I said, this is phase 1 to 3 of probably several phases in the future. And so we wanted to get the data in front of our managers so they could start using it. But yeah, there were, especially with some of the Salesforce metrics that we wanted to pull, we wanted to look at, for example, the percent of mutual plans attached, right? But we didn't want duplicate ops or partner ops to affect the percentages and have that percentage be lower than the actual activities that those reps were doing. And so there was a couple of different considerations that we had to do. And again, I really give kudos to the partnership between our enablement team and our operations team to solve those.
Yeah. Like leadership alignment, you drove a massive change management initiative. You dramatically changed the culture at RingCentral, and you've been able to move the needle on key metrics for new hires on ramp and their productivity. Like, who does that? It's amazing. It's amazing.
Our onboarding team, which Melissa Regan runs, we're now expanding that to our partner organizations and our GSP organizations. It's catching on like fire. So yeah. I'm thrilled with the work that Caitlin and Melissa did here. And Eli, I echo what you said. Like the big difference was that our managers were bought into this. It is critical that at the very beginning we say enablement and ops and all these teams will support you, but you have to believe that what you're going to spend time doing is going to change the output from your team. And they asked for it, we delivered, and they executed.
So the buy-in, right? So I got to believe that they weren't all bought in at the very beginning, or when this was an idea that you had started thinking about, and when you and Carson started kind of brainstorming. So tell us a little bit about, how did you get buy-in?
So, of course, right, Carson brought it up. He said, do two things: make the number, keep the team happy. Yeah. When I came back with the initial flow, I said, I want to get together a core group of managers I know does this well today, and interview them and figure out how does it flow into their cadence? What are they doing, what they're doing? That definition of coaching that we came up with was the critical turning point. We had all managers in the room to do that, and everybody did it. We did a poll across the room, and everybody said, yes, I'm going to incorporate this. So we took their feedback, defined what it was tangibly, although coaching is not super tangible, right? But we defined what it was, and then we got their check, I will do it. And then we measured who was doing it. And that's where the honor roll came in. People love when you take the coaching they just did in the field and reverse it on them. So Kevin's whole thing was around appreciation. Well, we knew that his appreciation style was gift giving. So when we went to give Kevin his honor roll, we awarded him with a sous vide machine. I messaged his wife on Facebook. I learned that Kevin was really into cooking once COVID hit, and he had never done sous vide as a type of cooking. And so we were able to reward him differently. And we presented that to him with all the other managers on the line. On Carson's monthly required management call. So we kept it top of mind by having that recurring, and we kept it fun and light by highlighting managers that were doing it the right way, helping get everybody else on board.
No, that's great. I love it. The leadership buy-in, I think the slide that you showed, the slide that had the detailed activities and the metrics and the KPIs, like the detail, like that slide was amazing. It did cover leading indicators and lagging indicators, correct?
Let me go back.
There's a question, not that, like the one, this one, right? So you've got quota attainment, activity metrics, right? So open, closed. And so just to kind of go back to that question around leading indicators, this is your first phase. And your future phases are going to be, you're going to put more thought into more of the leading indicators, and as well when you do the BDR. You want to just comment a little bit more on that for Kelly? Kelly's specific question is, any reason you didn't include leading indicators like activities, calls made, outreaches, etc.?
Yeah, I'm going to turn it to Caitlin, but just quickly, of course, what we wanted to do was get to not too much, not too little, just right. And this is focused on an account executive profile. So for account executives that have 20 years of job experience, measuring their calls really isn't going to tell us a whole lot because they primarily work in the opportunity phase, right? So measuring the stage changes of opportunities and the gates that they're following in our sales process is more important for that particular role. As we move to other roles, different metrics may come up. But either way, we did try to balance leading and lagging indicators across all dashboards, just role specific. Caitlin, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, no, that's pretty close to what I was going to respond. We really wanted to choose like metrics specific to the role that we were looking at. And we did begin with account executive in our field sales team. So the next stages of this, we will be doing BDR, we will be doing ones for different partners, solutions engineering, and so on. And all of those metrics are going to look very different from role to role.
I love it. I love it. And Amy commented, message his wife on Facebook, haha, going that extra mile. That's the ultimate RBE, relationship building extra, right?
Listen, if you're going to teach them to do a methodology, you better do it yourself.
I love it. I love it. So everyone that's listening, before we wind down, I just wanted to let everyone know that there's a lot of work that went in here. And luckily for RingCentral, they've got the right team in place. They've got the right leadership. They've got the right alignment with sales leaders. They've got the right leaders. They've got the right vision, but they also have the systems and the templates, right? And so they've got, the systems are set up right. They're able to hook them up. And so for those of you that are, currently evaluating systems or trying to figure out how you're going to do this, right? We can help make it easy, right? So the SalesHood platform, like Melissa wrote in the feed, will help you structure your data, help you structure your learning paths and your courses and your curriculum and your program, so you can actually measure the completion and participation the right way. And then our newly released correlation engine will enable you to one click install the data. You can do it in Salesforce. You can also do a very quick integration with Tableau. So we're here to help. And I'm on so many calls every day speaking with enablement people, and you're so far ahead. You're so far ahead. No disrespect to anyone out there. Everyone's doing amazing things, but the way that you've correlated the data, tied it to a program, measured it, handed it to the frontline managers, coached the managers, built a program around them, have leadership buy-in, and have this become part of the cadence of how you run the business. You're way ahead, and you should really, really be proud of the work that you've done. Amazing. And so thank you. And, Sarah and Caitlin, I'd love for you to just kind of wind this down with a few final words that you want to leave people with before we shut this down.
I love it. Caitlin, you want to kick it off?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having us here. This has been a great experience for me. And I know for the team and I, finally being able to show this to everybody after, the months and the pre-months that went into this and the ideation, it's been really cool. And I'm really excited to see how much farther we can go in the future phases. This is just phase 3 of how many. So yeah, I'm really happy, and thank you for having us.
And Sarah, if I may, this is Caitlin. This is one of your first live webinars like this, right?
Yeah, it's my first one.
First of many. You are a star. Sarah, please close this out.
Absolutely. I'll land on what you see on the screen. Coaching plus data equals a happy team. And that's what we all want.
I love it. And that has the results, and that has the outcomes, and that continues moving us up and to the right. You guys rock. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very, very, very much. We're always here to support the community. We're always here to support every one of our customers. Each and every one of you, reach out if we can be of service and help anyone. And Sarah and Caitlin, thank you so much. And thank you, RingCentral, for the great partnership. See you everyone later. Happy Canada Day. Happy 4th. You're so welcome.
Enjoy the long weekend, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.